We've got Julie Wittes Schlack, the Senior Vice President of Innovation in Communispace, and we've got Jennifer Furia, a colleague of mine from CMK and P&G. One of the founding members of Communispace Corporation, Julie has been instrumental in designing and continually evolving Communispace's online community offerings. Julie leads an innovation and research group whose mission is to uncover new patterns and trends in online behavior and test new techniques and technologies for engaging people in online communities and social networks. Jen Furia, relative newcomer to P&G in 2011, where she works in consumer market knowledge for the Secret brand. She led the new digital research methods for Secret, bringing consumer insights and connections closer to the products. Before joining P&G, she worked at KPMG as a digital analyst. She graduated from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business in 2010 and now lives in Cincinnati, which, as I mentioned before, is just across the river. All right, so welcome, Julie and Jennifer. Thanks.
Hi. Thank you. Hi. Ooh, all right. Delighted to be here. I think anyone who's been on Facebook knows that we all sort of have become pretty expert at creating these digital identities that are fit for public consumption, right? I mean, nobody posts on Facebook, it's Saturday night, I'm alone at home, I'm really bummed out, right? I mean, people, while they disclose a lot in social media, it's still hard to get an all-rounded view of who people are. So when we started working with P&G, it's because they were really trying to understand who their consumer was in a much more holistic way. I think adding to the challenge is that, like most consumer packaged goods companies with multiple categories and product lines, research historically tends to take a pretty siloed approach. So the hair people are interested in hair, and the skin people are interested in skin, and the underarm people are interested in that. But interestingly, most women actually have all three of those things. So we began working with P&G in an attempt to help them really understand their consumer in a much deeper way. So what we're going to be talking about is sort of the use of mobile to generate really deep consumer and shopper insights, but in conjunction with online communities, because it's a particularly powerful combination.
Yeah, that's very right. So traditionally, if you were going to look at the way that any beauty brand, which is the area that I work at in P&G, would do business, we would take a very business question approach. What does Pantene want to learn about hair? What does Secret want to learn about deodorant? And there are underlying insights that kind of blend those all together. So the work that we did with Communispace was saying, what are all of our business questions, and kind of sum them all up together. What are the things that are similar about them, and how can we learn from a category perspective rather than a business unit brand perspective about all of those things, so that we can get to a deeper understanding of our consumer and maybe understand how our brands can get some scale and work together. Because we're a big company, but we tend to operate in silos, like Julie was mentioning. So our approach overall was to understand her, not only from how she's experiencing our category, so that's like what she's seeing in the store and what she's hearing about brands and what she's experiencing as she's using her products, but also what is she thinking about herself in that process, and what does she think that others are thinking about herself in that process. So we're trying to get this holistic view of the consumer, both when she's using our products and also what she's thinking about on a daily basis, because it's not until we get that connection with the consumer on a deeper level that we're going to get her loyalty. So we were able to scale this learning across a lot of our different categories.
So the way they did that was by creating 3 online communities representing a very wide swath of people and demographics. Just in brief, the way we approach private online communities is they're recruited to each client's specifications. They are private, members are screened. They're very actively facilitated. There are new activities for people to participate in every week. The effect of all of that sort of high touch, high engagement facilitation are a few things. One is that people are very highly engaged because there is always something new for them to do. They very quickly develop trusting relationships with one another and with the brand because the atmosphere is private and intimate. And because we're very intentional about engaging people not just in the sort of standard survey and discussion board and brainstorm and even image sharing, but in activities that really enlist their emotions and their creativity in a variety of ways. And that, too, increases the engagement. So this is a long-winded way of saying that private community, in our experience, sort of creates the foundation of intimacy that's really invaluable to then leveraging the highly intimate nature of a mobile device. So ultimately, this is not about the technologies, right? It really starts with the people and the relationship you have with those participants. So why does mobile matter for insight generation? I mean, because you get at the here, you get at the now, you get at the me. Particularly in this context, mobile is increasingly, used as sort of people's health and fitness and sort of living coach, the sort of quantifiable self. Mobile is a way to really have an intimate understanding of people's workplace. It's what people sleep with, what they go to the bathroom with, I'm told. What that house, their pictures and their financial information and their lives. So I want to give you just a few examples of the here, because this pertains as much to sort of mobile ethnography and mobile survey design as anything. These are just examples from a very simple exercise we did where we asked people, the next time you're in the store, just take pictures of what's capturing your attention. So what's capturing your eye, and if you made any impulse purchases, show us what you bought and why. That's a very simple assignment. It has, I think, the attributes of a good mobile assignment, which is it's time limited, it's highly focused, it makes use of the rich media capabilities of the phone. Another sort of more targeted example was for a food company who had introduced a package with a product with new packaging and saw a pretty precipitous decline in sales. So there the assignment was more targeted. It was go to this aisle the next time you're in the grocery store, take pictures and tell us what you see, tell us if you notice this product, tell us how you feel about it. What we learned from this for the client was not just that indeed the new package was a problem, that it created confusion, but we learned that in fact it wasn't on the shelf in a lot of stores from a particular retailer. So in this case, by deputizing these already very highly committed, highly engaged community members to in essence be the eyes and ears of the brand, it alerted them to a distribution problem they didn't know that they'd had.
So I'm going to share a few examples of what we did for the P&G study overall. One of them was just for the C's, here's, and experiences within the store. We had 30 women for a period of 5 weeks, and we said, take pictures of things when you're experiencing products, and tell us what you think, and tell us how you feel, and where you were. So if you take yourself back to the old world of how we might do market research, if we're trying to do in-store, we would put them in a made-up store, and we would put a shelf talker on there, and we'd say, go walk through and see what you notice, and we would have a very scripted way of asking them questions and asking them what stands out, and generally it's the last 5 minutes that we tend to focus on, and after we've pointed it out, this is a really great shelf talker, it's going to sell a ton of cases. But that's not how it really works, because you don't have that much attention from consumers. So this is a user-generated photo up here of a shelf talker that somebody did notice. She liked the way that the swirls look, and so she told us what jumped out to her. And the fact that she actually took the time, she self-edited because she chose to take the picture when she had this challenge, that's telling us that there's really something about this execution that's working. We're able to really kind of make some best-in-class checklists that we can use as we're going forward for other interactions. So another example is this is a way for us to see how we can get trialists and loyalists. So in this example, we had somebody talking about shopping at Lush. It's a pretty high-end boutique for a lot of body care products, and she said that it's pretty heavy or pretty high in price, but she tells us that it's because the scent and the way that it influences her mood that makes her want to buy it. So there's some sort of a connection she's making with that brand that's going beyond just moisturizing her feet. And so if that's something that we as a brand can start to sell to other consumers, that's a way that we can keep that connection and keep it going to a lot of other people. In another example, this is for the Secret brand specifically, we wanted to know what kind of scented products people like. So if you think about deodorant, it's not really an awesome topic that people want to think about. It's not really top of mind for them. And so if we put people in that mindset already and ask them, what do you like? What do you think is important for you for scent? They're going to talk in very specific silos, like powder, and we're not going to get anywhere from it. So one of the ways that we're able to kind of broaden it is say, anytime that you smell something that you like, or anytime that you experience something that's beneficial, take a picture of it, Send it to us and tell us why you like it. So we got some traditional soap examples, something that was bringing memories of Sunday afternoon. Now, if I would have just thought apricot sunshine, I might not have taken it to that memory place. So they were able to kind of tell us how the scent is impacting their overall experience of the product. They're able to tell us why they like it. But it also took us to other places. So Play-Doh smells like childhood. We got to a lot of different examples that wouldn't have been within our category. We also went to other kind of arts and crafts places. So the smell of drying paint on wood on this birdhouse, my boyfriend and I collaborated on it. It reminds me of trying to build a treehouse clumsily as a child. So we went all the way back to childhood in some of these examples of the way that scents are impacting, the way that consumers are experiencing products. So if you think in a silo of just some sort of a piece of innovation, you're not necessarily going to get that depth of emotion. So we were really able to unlock some insights about consumers and the way that they were experiencing products that we wouldn't have gotten if we just focused on our products overall.
So Jen talked about self-editing, and earlier today people talked about the fact that you're not truly in the moment when you're doing ethnographic work, that by virtue of the assignment, you're actually asking people to be in the moment and then step outside of it and make a judgment about what they're going to share. So the real question is, how does that work to your advantage? So this is just an example of a client who wanted to see what packaged foods people had in their homes. So they had to take pictures, scan barcodes, tell us about it. Not only did we get the data, but more importantly, what we got was a surfacing of the gap. We got reflection from the participants who sort of said, gee, I thought I shopped and ate pretty healthily until I did this. And doing this exercise sort of gives me new insight into my own behavior. I think that historically that sort of thing used to be anathema to market researchers. But I think that through mobile ethnography and rich media in general, and through a long-term connection where people can iterate and reflect, we're starting to see the power of that sort of self-awareness when used properly.
So one of the other things we were able to experience is the socialization of a lot of these ethnographies, and I think some other people have already talked about this. But not only are we going to get some information from how some women think of themselves, and so you see in the bubble above the woman, this is how she's talking, how she describes herself. She thinks she has some tired eyes. We're also able to have other people very candidly comment on what they think that she looks like. So we had some not so nice comments, maybe in the family realm, but also some nice happy comments. And that sort of interaction is really something that we were able to get to because we had this close-knit, closed community. But it also gives us another depth because we see what she's thinking and we see what other people are thinking. And so that kind of helps us mold our insights as we're developing different marketing campaigns and things like that. So having that kind of back and forth adds a layer of complexity and also a layer of richness into a lot of the work that we were able to do. Because we have these ongoing interactions and it's not just siloed information of how one person perceives themselves, but it's how a lot of people perceive themselves. So they can kind of have a conversation back and forth, which is really helpful.
One more example. Again, this speaks to intimacy. The example you see on the left were sort of P&G women at the point that they stepped out of their showers, sharing little movies about the experience they just had. The example on the right was from a retail client who had people try on some jeans at home that they felt comfortable in, that they thought looked good, shoot a video of that, explain why they liked that pair of pants, then go to the store, go into the changing room, try on pants, and take videos in the moment in the changing room of these pants that in many cases were not great fits, right? So we're exposing all of the bulges and the creases and the places where it was less than ideal, and again talking about why it was not a great fit. I have to say when we were asked to do this, we were filled with trepidation because it just felt like a step over the line. But again, because this trusting, intimate relationship already existed, we had tremendous participation in this project, and now subsequently another client is doing this with the fit of bras. So there you have it. So quick, just very top line, some things to learn and expect. One thing that's helpful in triggering participation, particularly when you are relying on people to do self-reporting, is either having an emotional trigger. So the example on the left is of things that annoy me, or you're right perhaps, things that annoy me where, annoyance is a good emotional trigger to reporting something. And we got some very actionable insights out of it. The example on the right was of children at play. So again, asking people to do something focused, like every time your daughter is playing, we want to find out what she's doing and where and so on, is a more manageable task than simply, for example, take us through a day in your life. I think in general, if you haven't already heard, you will hear from others that mobile surveys generally tend to yield higher response rates and faster responses. That is actually not so much our experience in the community, but again, I think that's because we already have very highly engaged people. The same is true with character counts. There's a lot of other research out there that says that the character counts in mobile survey responses, are equal to or slightly higher than online survey responses. That is not at all our experience. The purple bars are the online responses, the gray are the mobile responses. But again, when our mobile responses are comparable to everyone else's, our online responses are far lengthier. I think that is clearly a function of the fact that you ask the question differently depending on the platform, and that's something to take advantage of. When you have an existing relationship, people invest more time and energy. But the point here is, so this was a question about when are you using your mobile financial app. The people on the left, the person on the left online gave us this very lengthy, detailed response about where she was and what she was doing and what was going on. Very useful. The person on the right gave us a 19-character response that actually got to the emotional truth. And so I think the point is that I think we may have to be platform agnostic, but I don't think that's something we should aspire to. I think where we have the luxury to use the best tool for the job, we should, and where we have the luxury to leverage existing long-term relationships with consumers, we should do that as well. So, thank you. Questions? Down there.
Hi. I'm just curious for your communities. Do you kind of gamify it? Do you have spot incentives? I know you talked about just the bonding that happens. Is that just the natural facilitated bonding that you enable, or do you also spot incentivize?
So we do not spot incentivize. And it's interesting, our approach to this is definitely evolving. We do typically provide something to the equivalent to like a $10 Amazon gift certificate for people who average one contribution a week. So every month, if you're an active participant, you might get $10. We don't do that in all communities. What we find is that material incentive is important at the beginning to sort of get people into the community. Once they're in, having a voice and having sort of being visibly heard by P&G, by the client, feeling that what you are saying is being heard and matters, the sort of social glue that we very actively try to create to promote bonding between members and between members in the brand, those intangible rewards, and just the sheer pleasure of being asked to use your brain in ways you don't normally get to use it. All of those things become much more inherently motivating in their own right. So we're actually starting to revisit our approach to incentives for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Just I think sometimes that a monetary incentive within the process really changes the dynamic. It adds something peculiar into it when you've already bonded, when your people have bonded. So.
Yeah, I would just push back a little bit and say, look, there's no way we're beginning to compensate people for their time. Right. So the analogy I think about is if you're moving and you ask a friend to help you move, if you offer to pay them, they would be offended and it would feel very transactional. But if you didn't offer them pizza and a beer, they would feel offended. So I think what we do is the equivalent of the thank you of pizza and a beer.
And we've tried to make sure that we're kind of changing the way that we're talking to consumers as well. So instead of just saying, we want you to look at this and tell you what you think. We actually are asking them to roll up their sleeves and start, what would you change? What picture would you change? Would you change the text? Like, get very executional with them so that they feel like they're kind of putting their business hat on and they're invested in the process, which is encouraging them to come back. We had a lot of people say, I saw that my idea got incorporated into this new round, and that's really exciting. So I think that there's ways where you can keep that camaraderie while still incentivizing people.
Great. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ben.
I'll catch you up.